I had a sudden epiphany about how pitiful and unfortunate my sister is. "I've got the perfect idea," I exclaimed. "What kind of idea?" a curious voice asked. "Well, just watch closely." Jessica, dressed in an extravagant wedding gown, one fit for a grand ceremony, gestured for a microphone. Once she received it, she turned to the gathered guests and confidently announced, "Would anyone care to take my sister off our hands? She's not particularly well educated, and she's not getting any younger, is she?" As she spoke, Jessica glanced at her sister with a smug, mean-spirited smile, unaware of how inappropriate her actions were. Her blunder changed the atmosphere in the room immediately. Murmurs spread throughout the crowd, and some guests began casting cold looks in Jessica's direction. Oblivious to the shifting mood, Jessica gripped the microphone tightly again. "Come on, sister, you need to sell yourself more. There are plenty of handsome doctors here. You really don't understand what you've done, do you?" At that moment, an unexpected incident occurred. "My name is Emily Nichols, a plain 29-year-old working woman. I don't have any particularly outstanding features except for one unusual fact. After graduating from middle school, I pursued a career in law and obtained my attorney's license. I have a sister named Jessica, 2 years younger than me. She's charming in appearance and sociable by nature, so she has always been treated specially by our family. I am not particularly noticeable in appearance, just plain, and I fit within the average range in terms of style. Moreover, I'm not especially charming, so I was never much cherished by my family or relatives. I've hardly felt any affection and was often treated coldly within our home. I couldn't compete with Jessica's natural charm, and she monopolized our parents' passionate love. On the other hand, all I received were harsh looks. I worked as hard as I could in my studies, earning good grades in the hope of attracting even a little attention from my family, but I could never outshine her. Eventually, tired of striving for my family's love, I decided to take a different path. Giving up on being loved, I poured even more effort into my studies, dedicating myself to deepening my knowledge and finding my own worth. My efforts led to visible results, and I hoped that my academic success would one day lead to a word of praise from my parents. Holding on to this faint hope, I continued to study late into the night throughout my middle school years. I'd always maintained the top spot in my class and outpaced the other students in every test. Despite this, not once did I receive words of praise from my parents during those long school years. Instead, I was often met with what felt like reproach for my grades. "It's not just about being at the top. You need to get nearly perfect scores in every subject. Yes, even if you score 95% in science, it's not perfect," my mother would say. "But this recent exam was really difficult," I protested. "Excuses again and again. Your insufficient efforts are why you end up with such results," she retorted, her voice sharp as ice. It was truly disagreeable. "Are you intending to flaunt those less than perfect grades?" All I could do was apologize. "Yes, I'm sorry," I murmured softly. No matter how much time and effort I invested, my results never matched my parents' idea of perfect. They never acknowledged my efforts. Any score less than 100% was just a reason for reprimand. But more than my parents' coldness, my sister Jessica's seemingly innocent words hurt more. "Oh, sister, you're not getting lectured again, are you?" she'd say, entering my private space without permission and smirking at my report card. Good grades and still scolded. "That's sad. I get praise for barely passing." "Did you come here just to say that?" I asked. "I was worried maybe you were down again, but I didn't expect such a cold reception." Jessica feigned concern. "If you were really worried, you wouldn't speak to me like that." That was my report. "See, that's your problem. You're always like this, so standoffish. That's why Dad and Mom don't show you love," she said, her gaze as cold as ice as she looked down on me with unmistakable contempt. For a brief moment, her attitude was palpable even as she departed. After she left, the sound of her cheerful laughter with our parents could be heard from the living room. I should have been used to this kind of situation by now, but the sadness that suddenly welled up inside me couldn't be contained, and tears began to streak down my cheeks. In my hand was the report card, crumpled beyond recognition in my clenched fist. I resolved once again to stand on my own and break free from this suffocating family environment. I determined that excelling in my studies and enhancing my abilities was essential for my escape. From that moment on, I threw myself into my studies with even greater zeal than before. One day, as the autumn breeze swept through the classroom windows, my father made an unexpected announcement. "Emily, you will not pursue high school. You'll immediately start looking for a job," he stated coldly. I was at a loss for words, unable to mask my confusion. "Why would you say something like that?" I asked, trying to keep my face expressionless. "Further investment in you is unnecessary," my father replied. "If you want to go to high school, pay for it with your own earnings. If that's impossible, then you have no choice but to give up." "But I'm still in middle school. Work opportunities are limited for me," I protested, my voice trembling. How am I supposed to? My protest fell on deaf ears. Then you must resign yourself to this, my father declared definitively. After discussing it with your mother, we decided to concentrate our finances on Jessica. We can't afford to spend more on you. That's not fair, I screamed internally, but my father's decision was unshakable. His abrupt words drained all the color from the world around me, painting everything in shades of gray. My mother and sister watched me, their faces wearing smiles that were uncomfortably gleeful. I understand much more now. For example, there were options to cover high school expenses, such as finding schools that offered tuition waivers or scholarships. However, back then, without the knowledge to access such information, I was simply devastated by the closure of my path to further education. From that day on, my passion for learning faded rapidly. The praises of my homeroom teacher, who had always admired my grades, rang hollow. The lack of attention to education at home made my prospects of advancing to higher education even more hopeless. Eventually, I stepped into the next stage of my life, working at a local factory immediately after graduation. At the time, I was not yet of age to live independently and support myself. Therefore, until I reached the age of 18, I continued to work as hard as I could. My salary from the job was primarily contributed to the household, and the meager amount I kept for myself was saved for the future. Those difficult days felt like crawling through an endless tunnel. On my 18th birthday, I finally left that house, leaving a single letter for my family. With my decision in my heart, I walked away from the home that now only existed in my memories. The family's reaction afterward was ironically as if I had never existed, complete silence, without a single phone call or letter. Initially, living apart from my family caused me heartache, and the loneliness cast a shadow over my days. However, as time passed, the loneliness gradually eased with the busyness of work. Since moving out and starting an independent life, the stress I had felt at home disappeared, and I began to experience a mental spaciousness I had never felt before. This newfound peace of mind reignited a new enthusiasm within me. I regained my former passion for academia and decided to start learning anew. As I began to study again after a long hiatus, I started with the basics, reviewing them diligently. The joy of learning filled my heart once more, and before I knew it, I was continuing my studies with ease. After that, I started to delve into high school textbooks and simultaneously began extensive reading. During my reading journey, I became fascinated by books on law, which sparked a profound interest in the legal profession. With my education having ended in junior high, the career of a lawyer seemed distant, yet I serendipitously learned about the preliminary examination system. This system presented a possibility for someone with my educational background to take the bar exam. Armed with this new information, my dedication to studying intensified. I utilized every possible moment at home and even during short breaks at work. I was committed to memorizing legal terms even during lunch breaks, eating while ensuring my preparation for the bar exam never waned. My workplace was populated with people from the generation above me, most of whom were around my parents' age. They saw my earnest efforts and united to support me. At the age of 23, I finally managed to pass the exam. After passing the bar, I left my long-term job at the factory and secured a position at a top-notch law firm. Following roughly 4 years of training there, I set out on my own and opened my own law practice. Now I spend my days contentedly serving as a legal consultant for a hospital. Yet sometimes I ponder, what if I told my parents about becoming a lawyer? I wonder how they would react. Sometimes I harbor the hope that now I might finally meet the expectations they once had for me. Nevertheless, I have not shared anything with them, and deep down, I believe I will continue not to reach out to them. However, an unexpected reunion with my family came sooner than anticipated. One evening after finishing work, I came home to find a message on my smartphone from my younger sister Jessica saying she was getting married. Jessica is getting married, I murmured softly to myself. My sister, now 27, was engaged to a doctor, and I received a notification that her wedding was scheduled for next month. They wished for my attendance. Despite the long period of estrangement from Jessica and my parents, the hesitation to meet them was there. But as a family member, I couldn't overlook this significant event, so I sent a reply agreeing to attend. A prompt response from my sister arrived, outlining the exact date and location of the ceremony. Such cordiality, the message ended with a note, "Don't forget the wedding gift." I smiled wryly to myself, thinking that perhaps Jessica was more interested in the gift than wholeheartedly welcoming me. I decided to use the wedding as an occasion to reunite with my family and then part ways again. I firmed up this resolution. On the day of Jessica's wedding, I donned a carefully selected blue dress and headed to the venue for the ceremony. After completing the entrance formalities, I took my seat in the area reserved for family, where my father and mother were already seated. "You have some nerve showing up here. You must be doing well for yourself with those meager earnings from the factory," my father said coldly. "Indeed, you're right. Introducing someone like her as family does not do us any credit as parents, my mother added with a tone of disdain. Jessica shouldn't have invited someone like you, my father continued. I told them exactly that, but they insisted on receiving the celebration money regardless, my mother stated quietly. Despite my presence right before them, they carried on this conversation without hesitation. This was the reality I faced. A faint hope that sharing my side of the story might bridge the gap between my family and me existed, but it was swiftly shattered, crumbling inside me. Both my father and mother seemed to completely avoid any conversation with me. In the quiet, I glanced around the venue and noticed some familiar faces among the groom's side. Hadn't I seen that person somewhere before? I mused to myself, feeling a sense of déjà vu with the person sitting next to them as well. While tracing my uncertain memory, I looked up the groom's name and my suspicion turned into conviction. The connection I had anticipated became clear. I couldn't entirely hide my faint surprise. Such a coincidence, it's almost like a twist of fate. I marveled at the thought. However, I decided to keep my emotions in check and spend the day quietly as part of the ceremony. As the program proceeded, the bride and groom made a glamorous entrance, followed by speeches and entertaining performances that softened the atmosphere. As time passed, the banquet gradually shifted to dinner and then to photo-taking sessions. Throughout this time, my parents got up without acknowledging my presence and moved towards the front where the bride and groom awaited. Jessica, as if drawn by a magnet, clung close to them, showing a happy smile with each photograph taken. While pretending to feel nothing about the scene unfolding before me, I focused silently on the meal in front of me. Unexpectedly, my sister Jessica quietly approached me. She came closer with a smile, but her eyes had a spark of something more than excitement to see her sister after so many years. It seemed like she was up to something else. "Big sis, it's been such a long time, hasn't it? Are you happy to spend time together like this?" she asked lightly. I nodded quietly, expressing my genuine thoughts. "Yes, the banquet food is really wonderful," I said with a sarcastic smile. Jessica continued, "You can't get such luxurious food at the factory you work at, can you? You should be grateful for this opportunity." Something inside me felt like it was being torn apart, but I didn't show it on my face. Jessica's words became sharper, tauntingly piercing me. "Oh dear, did I upset you? I'm sorry, but it's natural for you to be envious, isn't it? Your little sister marrying a doctor and all." The phrase, "I'm sorry," came from Jessica's mouth flippantly, as if it were a meaningless ornament. I kept my expression unchanged and quietly waited for her next move. At that moment, Jessica whispered in my ear, "Big sis, because I feel sorry for you, I've come up with a great idea." Despite maintaining her composure, I could sense that Jessica had something up her sleeve. I asked with suspicion, "A great idea? What is it?" Jessica replied with satisfaction, "You'll see, just watch closely." Then, adorned in her elegant wedding dress, Jessica gathered the attention of everyone around as she received a microphone from the staff. Suddenly, she announced loudly to the guests, "Ladies and gentlemen, you may not be aware, but my sister is here. She may not have the highest education or be the youngest, but if there is anyone kind-hearted enough, could you please take her under your wing?" My face turned red. "What are you saying, Jessica?" I exclaimed. Jessica continued even louder, "Although she doesn't earn much and leads a modest life, is there someone here who can brighten my sister's future?" As the gazes of those around focused on me, my younger sister seemed to be enjoying my confusion with a smug smile. At that moment, a breathtaking scene unfolded. Jessica's blasphemous attitude escalated, and astonishingly, even our normally gentle parents chimed in with her tune. "Please, treat her kindly." This frivolous comment from my parents was the last straw for me. Rage swirled within me. To ridicule a person so much at a time of happiness, how far will you go to be satisfied? I can't believe this. But now it was time for them to be confronted with reality. As the atmosphere shifted and murmurs increased throughout the venue, Jessica, unaware that she was once again the center of attention, cheerfully took the microphone and called out, "Emily, look, there are so many doctors gathered here. It's your chance." I maintained silence, conveying a strong will through my somber gaze. "This is the end for you." A confused Jessica could only respond with, I continued more calmly towards her, "You'll understand soon just how terrible your actions have been." Just as Jessica tried to make an excuse, the groom suddenly raised his voice to address the venue. "Wait, please, why are you leaving your seats?" The venue was riveted by his voice. Looking towards the groom, it was evident that all his colleagues from work were standing up, heading for the exit. Even as the groom tried to stop them, a dignified man who appeared to be the hospital director spoke to the groom with determination. "The recent remarks of the bride were so unpleasant that I'm in disbelief. I apologize, but we can no longer stay here. We will take our leave now." In response, the groom hurried to stop the hospital director, offering to take responsibility for her words and actions. "Please wait. I admit her words were inappropriate. I'll speak to her directly and ensure she undergoes a serious change in awareness. However, the hospital director pointed out the gravity of the issue and revealed a background that the groom was unaware of. The crux of the problem isn't just that. Do you not know what kind of person her sister is? The groom, though confused, admitted he knew nothing about her sister. No, I only met her sister for the first time today, and all I've heard was that she worked in a factory after graduating from middle school. The hospital director could not hide his irritation at the groom's ignorance. Don't be ridiculous. Her sister is a respected lawyer and also serves as the legal advisor to our hospital. The groom was shocked to learn of this fact, indicating he was unaware that I was the hospital's legal advisor. And the lawyer is our hospital's advisor, the director continued. Not only the groom, but also Jessica and my parents were at a loss for words. I am contracted as the legal advisor of that hospital, and the hospital where my sister's husband-to-be works is the hospital I work at. The reason why the groom looked familiar was that I had seen him several times at hospital events. The other guests probably came to the same realization upon seeing me. My sister's inappropriate comments only added fuel to the fire, and that's why the hospital director openly expressed his outrage. Although the groom himself is a member of the hospital's medical staff and has no direct relation to me, to the hospital director and other staff, the legal advisor is of significant importance. The groom's face turned even redder in an instant, and he stepped toward Jessica, raising his voice in reproach. What on earth is this? Because of your carelessness, my reputation is now tarnished. Jessica stumbled over her words for a moment, then defended herself like a bewildered child. It's not like that. I truly had no idea that my sister was in such a prestigious position. The groom, growing more indignant, continued to reproach Jessica for her ignorance. Ignorance is no excuse, and how can you speak so lightly and disrespectfully of your own sister? As a human being, your behavior is at the very bottom. You've truly lost sight of what's valuable. Jessica, desperately trying to elicit some understanding, pleaded, "Wait a minute, listen. I have a good reason." However, the groom, leaving no room for her explanation, declared decisively, "The withdrawal from the marriage itself. I have no interest in hearing your excuses. Our marriage discussion ends here." Shocked by his words, Jessica collapsed on the spot as if her soul had left her, her complexion turning deathly pale. Then, in a fit of anger, the groom disappeared from the wedding hall along with the guests. As I was about to leave, I heard a desperate cry from my sister behind me. "Please help me, Emily." But without being swayed by her cries, I confronted her with a stern tone. "Help you, you say? Why should I do such a thing for you? The situation you find yourself in is the result of the seeds you have sown. Attempting to get a laugh with a joke that mocks others and then playing the victim when it fails is a pathetic sight that I cannot accept." Jessica, fraught with confusion and anxiety, pleaded, "Why are you using such harsh words? If I had known about your success as a lawyer..." With a quiet yet firm attitude, I responded, "Why should I need to inform someone who has never contacted me about my profession? In fact, I was planning to end our relationship after this wedding, but now, having witnessed your unfortunate end, I'm somewhat satisfied. You must be disappointed that your engagement to a doctor has been called off. Well, you better work hard to find your next prospect." With these words, I left the venue with dignity. From afar, I could hear the critical voices of my sister and parents from the guests. Everything proceeded as expected, and my sister's marriage was no more. The parents who had thought a secure future was assured through my sister marrying a doctor expressed their anger towards her for the first time. Due to the commotion, my sister, always pampered, couldn't withstand their anger and sought salvation with a broken heart, but I ignored her pleas without any sympathy. I never answered the phone despite repeated attempts, and I cut off all methods of contact with my family. I heard that my sister had quit her job, now without employment, estranged from our parents, and spending her days shut in at home. As for me, I am maintaining a very satisfying state in both my work and private life, leading a peaceful existence without any significant problems. Although the bond with my family hasn't been smooth sailing, I am fortunate to be blessed with a great deal of support from people in my professional life and my day-to-day existence. This blessed environment isn't due to chance but the result of long-term self-investment and persistent effort. There were days when I faced harsh trials, but it is because I overcame each one that I am where I am today. Reflecting on my past struggles and recognizing their value for myself, I now hope to continue living a fulfilling life at my own pace, setting realistic goals while keeping stress to a minimum.